You're listening to Impulse to Innovation. The Institution of Mechanical Engineers podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Helen Mees. As a global community of mechanical engineers with over 120,000 members in 140 countries, the Institution of Mechanical Engineers has been at the heart of the engineering profession since 1847. The institution's mission is to improve the world through engineering by sharing the latest news, views and insight into the creative world of technology and the people that make it happen. One of the many ways members benefit from being part of the IMechE is through its events and webinar programme. Conferences, lectures and webinars, often generated by the divisions and groups themselves, help to deepen members' understanding of the latest engineering trends, technical reports and thought leadership, as well as providing excellent ways to network and build business relationships. As we draw to the end of 2024, I caught up with Head of Programmes, Frances Shaw, to chat about the year's events, what impact they'd had on members, and what's in store for 2025. Fran, thank you for joining me on today's podcast, the last one of 2024. I'm really excited to hear all about the events that you and your team have been producing this year and the impact that that's had for the institution and its members. I, like many engineers, love numbers. So let's start with some of the stats, shall we? Because I know you've shared those with me already. I'm keen to let our members know just exactly what you've been up to. So how many events have you produced this year and what have people got out of attending?
Yeah, no, I will let you know. Thanks for having me, Helen. 2024 has been really, really exciting year for us, actually. We have had over, I think, about 133 events. Wow. So that includes everything from webinars, lectures, technical seminars and conferences, but it also includes our competitions as well. So thinking here about Formula Student, the Railway Challenge. And across all of those in 2024, we've had about 15,000 attendees across. So
amazing.
Really, big impact to be had on across our events portfolio for sure. I guess if you want some stats, I think it's safe to say that quite a lot of people do like our events. We've got
That's good.
97% of people attending our event said that the event met their expectations. And over 95% of people attending said that they believe that they will apply the knowledge acquired in their job. So I think that's a really good stat to have, is that people not only are attending our events, liking our events, but seeing value in them as well. So our overall event rating currently is 4.5 out of 5 stars. We're pretty pleased with that, I would say.
That's really amazing. I mean, considering the amount of events, the amount of people that are coming through your door, your team isn't huge either, is it?
No, it's absolutely not.
Yeah, I mean, you're putting on not just, as you said, webinars, which are majority of those are online, but you're doing like 1 and 2 day conferences as well. I mean, these are big events to organise, aren't they?
Yeah, a huge amount of planning that goes into them, but we've got a relatively small team, but we also have all of our members, volunteers, organising committees that do loads of work with us as well. So they're really pivotal to that. And we would not be able to put on this many events and have this level of impact if we didn't have, our volunteers and our core membership engaged with us, because it would just be simply impossible for us to do.
Yeah, absolutely. The members, they put in an awful lot of effort to support
you,
yes. And you support them. It's a team event, right?
Yeah, no, it really does. It always feels like we're a team. We've got the same interests. We want the events to be successful in whatever the event format is and what it's trying to achieve. We want it to be a success, and so do the members. It is ultimately, the events are not for me. They're not for my team. They're for you guys. It's really important that we get that right. And the best way to do that is to simply ask the members, what do you want? And we do our best to try and to achieve that for you.
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask that question, so what are the main reasons that particularly members, but also you have a lot of non-members attend these events. So what are their main reasons for coming?
Yeah, we have a lot of non-members actually as well. I think it's worth noting that we put these on for an engineering community. not just our members. Everybody can attend these events, and it's about a 50-50 split,
Oh,
which I
right.
think people are generally quite shocked at. But so there's huge membership potential there for sure. But yeah, it's about 50-50 usually. But the main reason that I would say people attend our events is, of course, CPD. That's a big one.
Yeah.
But the biggest reason that people attend is general interest and to broaden their knowledge. So if you think about things like webinars, of course, a lot of that people attending those, it's not directly relevant to their jobs, but they're attending because engineers are passionate about engineering, regardless of what sector it is, usually. If it's an interesting technology or something that's got quite a wide scope, a lot of our members are interested in it on a more general basis. You guys, you tend to like the same thing, so
Well, things are moving so fast today across the engineering sectors. The developments in innovation and design and all of the things that go into what we do professionally as engineers is changing so quickly that these kind of events are so important to keep up to date with the latest practices, the latest regulations, all of those things that we need to kind of share that information and transmit it rapidly. So having events like webinars particularly are really fundamental to our own professional training.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really vital that people are still attending these events, because even some of our most popular events, aren't about new technologies. They're about, industries that are really mature, but actually there's always something new to learn. There's always best practice. There's always ways in which we can improve. And so it's really important that we keep engaging with those communities, make sure that our engineers are staying up to date, because from one year to the next, things that are seen as best practice actually probably aren't best practice anymore.
Yeah.
It's really important that we keep the events going and keep a community around them, even for the mature industries that we do cater for as well.
Yeah, and I guess that means you as a team having to keep up with the latest trends as well. So you're just as much engineers as we are in some respects, because you're having to learn and recognize when there's something new on the horizon and whether or not that's going to tie in with what's popular, I guess, amongst the members.
No, absolutely vital. Quite a number of my team actually did study, engineering at university, and it is vital that we do that. And a lot of what my team do in the background, as well as working with our core membership, is do market research. So we're often reaching out to the wider engineering community to sound out some of these ideas, try and find out, well, if there's anything missing that we're not really talking about amongst our core membership, because it's really important that we do that, because, often we need to sense check some of these ideas and say, actually, is this what the engineering community needs? Because not least, 50% of the people attending our events and training are, are non-members of the IMechE. So it's really, really important that we do that.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. I mean, when you say non-members, obviously they're not chartered members of the institution. Are they coming from other fields? Do you get a sense of where they're coming from professionally?
Yeah, they tend to be engineers. It tends to be that if they're not a member of the IMechE, they're going to be a member of something else. The IET, they're probably iChemie or something like that. We often have people who, we might invite to an event and they'll say, well, I'm not an IMechE member. And we're like, it's not about that. It's about giving back to the engineering community as a whole. Our CEO, Alice, is a real advocate for it's one open door to engineering, and the IMechE is there to support that, whether or not you're a member or not. Obviously, there's benefits of being a member of the IMechE, and I encourage everybody to become a member here.
Of course.
But it's not about that always. It's about what's best for engineering and what's best for encouraging people to consider not only the career, but also making sure that they're a good engineer. And it doesn't matter to me whether or not they're a member of the IMechE or not. It's about whether or not what knowledge have they got to share.
Yeah. Well, that leads me on, I guess, to my next question, because you, through the events, you also tie into the learning and development side of the IMechE, because that's a sort of separate group, isn't it? A separate team that organises the training side of things, but you still tie into that. So how have we done kind of on the training side of things this year?
Yeah, on the training side, it used to be separate. You're right in that. In terms of internally, it's separate, but we've made moves now to merge those two. So that's my new role this year, has been merging the two, because we identified the fact that a lot of the outcomes of both events and training are the same. and often the sort of driver behind doing them, again, are the same. They're just a sort of almost a different format. And so we recognise that, and we've sort of merged the teams. And so that's been a really exciting proposition for us, because we recognise that and the value that people gain from that. So on the training side, we've run 192 public courses this year. So that's sort of what you would imagine as our shop front.
Yeah.
But we've also done at the side of that 312 in-company training. So this is bespoke training that we deliver in-house at a particular company, for example.
Okay.
And so we do lots of those where it's more a particular training course, but really specific to that company and what that company needs, and they're upskilling a particular department. It's likely that they will come to the IMechE for us to deliver something on that. And again, our average rating for that is 91% satisfaction score. So people like it, and we really pride ourselves on the quality of both our events and training.
And I think that's quite an interesting point to make as well, the fact that this is not just about members for members' sake. This is looking at the whole picture of the industry and working with companies as well as individuals to ensure that they are doing the right sorts of training to keep their staff up to date. So you must do an awful lot of engagement with companies themselves to showcase what you can do, what we can deliver here at the IMechE.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really important for us to make sure that we're showcasing all that the IMechE can do. And we're going to make strides to be able to do that even better next year. Make sure that when we're going into companies to say, this is what the IMechE's got to offer, we're giving them almost a catalogue of everything that the IMechE has to offer, so that they can choose kind of what, based on what their needs are. So if it is that they want to get more of their employees through chartership, can we do some mentoring for them, help them with that membership process? Or is it that they want to upskill in a specific area, in which case let's put on some training for them? And so we really don't want to be just giving a one size fits all, because it's just not going to be useful for anybody. And so we really want to make sure that the IMechE is giving the engineering community what they need based on what they're requesting, essentially.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I guess this is quite a challenging question in some respects, but what's the key to a really good event? And can members suggest ideas for webinars and lectures and conferences and that sort of thing?
Yes, of course. And we welcome all ideas. I would say it differs from event to event. And one of the most important things to remember is that not one format will fit everything. So you have to think about what you're trying to achieve. What's the topic? What is it that you want to get from the event? Say if it's something that is quite new, quite sexy, you want to disseminate that information, across a large group of people that is more general interest. What's the best way of doing that? Is that going to be a really small technical seminar with a group of people? Probably not. What you want to be doing is a webinar there, something that is going to be accessible for all across, the UK and then wider. And so you have to think about, okay, what would I deem as success, and then work back from that and make sure that they both fit. But if we're talking about something that is more of a technical seminar and conference, when I did some analysis on some of our most successful events in terms of attendee numbers, because that tends to be what people view as a successful event, if you've got people in the room.
Yeah, sure.
The two main drivers were, has it got a clear industry driver behind it? Is there a new technology that's mature enough to be adopted into industry? Is there a regulation change that's making our engineers think more about engineers.
Yeah.
They don't trust marketing emails as much.
That's true. Just because you have a really good idea about what might be of interest to people doesn't necessarily mean to say it will make a good conference, right? So
Yeah.
I guess the point to make here to members who are listening is perhaps think small first. Perhaps think about doing a webinar or some kind of lecture or seminar first before you think about filling the Albert Hall full of people for a massive week-long conference, because that's actually going to test the water in terms of what you were just saying. That's going to give you some insight into the general interest and things.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of grow that from that small seed, can't you?
Yeah, for sure. And some of our most successful events are ones if we're thinking about technical seminars and conferences here, are the ones that have a history. So things that have already got an established community around them. If there's something new or a new idea, because our event portfolio is already so large, it's likely that there's something that you can fold that idea into.
Yeah.
Or you can piggyback off of that, or, innovate in what is an already existing event, because it's already got an engaged community around it. When you're thinking about launching lots of new things that don't have an established brand or an established community around them, they're really quite hard to get off the ground, especially because quite a number of the topics that come through the door tend to be really quite niche and technical.
Yeah.
But if you consider lots of other commercial conferences that a lot of our members do attend, a lot of them are really broad, really, really broad. It's not often you will see as many technical seminars as what we put on. It's not a usual event sort of format, I would say.
Yeah. Well, we've had, and when I say we, I'm talking about the biomedical engineering division. We've had some fantastic conferences and webinars this year, particularly our orthopedics conference, but also our incontinence conference, which next year will be reaching its 30th anniversary. So it's done 15. It's every other year. 30 years of planning and organizing. And like you said, that has a really dedicated committee that are constantly trying to revolve and develop the format so that they can keep at that interest. And although that sounds like a really niche subject, it's actually attended by a really wide range of people. And your team continue to support us on that, which is great. But what have been the highlights for other divisions and groups in terms of events this year? And what have been the standout themes, particularly from your point of view?
Yeah, I think this year there's been some really exciting things happen this year. We've tried to innovate a little bit and consolidate quite a lot of the event portfolio that we have to make sure that the stuff that we are doing has a big impact. And so I think some key highlights for me on the technical seminars and conferences, I would say hydrogen. So we have an engineering challenges in the hydrogen economy conference that takes place annually now in March time, which will be taking place in 2025. But that's grown right from in its initial stages. And that just seems to get bigger and bigger every year because, again, this is more of a technical conference. It's about engineering challenges specifically, whereas a lot of other hydrogen conferences often will talk about the financial elements of it, quite strategic, quite high level. And there isn't really anything there for engineers to talk about, okay, well, what about the projects that I'm working on? Throw all the money at the world at hydrogen, you're still going to have engineering challenges that need to be solved. So that's a really exciting thing for us because we found our own niche, and that gets really good reviews because there just isn't anything else on the market like it. And that's been so successful that we've had sort of spin-off events that have taken place. So Powertrain Systems and Fuels Group did a hydrogen IC engines seminar this year based off the fact that we had so much content in the hydrogen conference that we're looking at this specific technology. And so we did a launch event on that at the side of our EV batteries conference that has an existing sort of community around it. And that was really, really successful and people were really, really happy. We had loads of different elements that we included there, including having our Formula student teams attend. We had student posters so that we can encourage the next generation as well to make sure that they're keeping up to date. And so there's loads of different elements that we're trying to incorporate in just to build impact into some of our existing events, to just year on year trying to think, okay, well, how do we engage that different side of the community there? What can we do to support our young engineers? How do we keep our mature engineers up to date and things like that? So that's a really exciting angle that we had this year. And then I would say probably our power user groups, again, just they year on year just remind us that communities of engineers really want to stay up to date and make sure that they're interacting with the rest of their industry. And so these really form part of the calendar for our power engineers.
Yeah.
They're sort of based upon different industries, but every single year, we see that our engineers time and time again carry out activities to make sure that they're doing best practice. And so steam turbines, these are mature technologies, but our engineers still are wanting to learn. And I think that's really important that we do that. And then obviously, on the event side, some of our most impactful events are our competitions. I think it would be unusual of me not to mention those, and they are always a standout every single year as something that we see a wide engagement from, and they're huge projects that involve lots of people, and every year you come away from them thinking, wow, this is what the IMechE is for. This is why we're doing this. So I think they're always good. There's obviously a number of different events that we do. As I mentioned, we had quite a number. I think, did I say 133? It would be hard for me to pick one or two out of there. So exciting things happening this year. I think it's been a really successful year for us, both new ideas and some of our existing steadier events.
Yeah, well, it's nice to hear how the challenges specifically tie into the bigger, more traditional events as well. From a podcast point of view, we've attended all of the challenges and done shows with those really enthusiastic, passionate young engineers, right through to some of the more traditional events. And I remember going to my very first conference at IMechE HQ in 1997, I think it was, and it was a turbocharger conference. And it was quite small then, but now that's a huge event, isn't it? That's like a 2-day thing that goes on. Those traditional engineering subjects are still very relevant today, still very engaging to members, regardless of what field of engineering they come from.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have to, I guess, ask the question, what is it that gets you excited about these events? You've been doing this role now for a good number of years, and your team is incredibly dedicated to this. So I know it's hard for you to pick a personal favourite. I guess I should ask, but what gets you excited about organising events?
I think for our events, the most exciting thing is when you're on site and you can see the impact that it's having. And that's the case for all of our events. I don't think there's many events that we put on, if any, where we turn up and we think, well, why have we bothered doing this? Yeah. Every single time we turn up, the engineers are really, really grateful for it and sort of can see the value that you're adding into the engineering community. And so that's always really, really motivating for us. And it keeps us going because they're not the easiest things to do. And there's lots of planning going in, and there's always last minute stresses and things like that. But on the day, you think, oh, okay, this is why we're doing it. So I think that gets me excited. And then I would say, to be honest, one of the best things about doing events at the IMechE is the members that are also excited about it. Working with you guys when you're really passionate about a subject and you work with the experts is really motivating, because you know that there's a purpose to this and that people have got a real drive behind it. So I think that always keeps us quite excited. So I think, yes, those are probably the biggest elements for me. If I was going to give you a personal favourite from this year, I would probably say it was an event that I actually didn't work on myself, but I think the reason that we put it on and what we did there was really, really impactful. This year is the year that we celebrated and launched our Verena Holmes lecture celebration. And so that was a real highlight for me this year, because, I'm a woman in STEM and a member of the IMechE. And so to celebrate the first woman member of the IMechE was really great. And it's just one of those things that you think, it feels like sometimes we're further along than we are. And then sometimes we feel like we're a little bit behind where we should be. But actually, I think when we do these things and we partner up with really great supporting organisations, and we can pull off something like that, and everybody comes away thinking, yes, we're heading in the right direction. We might not be exactly where we need to be right now or want to be right now, but we're heading in the right direction, and doing these things are really great to see, supporting diversity and inclusion. And so the team that worked on that, it was a really collaborative project, and it was really great to be invited to that. Even though I wasn't involved in the planning at all, it was probably my favourite event of the year.
Yeah, I couldn't attend, unfortunately, but I saw some of the clips from it and some of the photos, and it looked an amazing evening. And I think you're right. I think when you get people in the room that are so passionate about a subject that it just, even if you are not part of that, it just buoys you up, doesn't it? It just, you come away feeling really excited and really enthused, and that really is why I guess you guys put on these events at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's happening for 2025? Can we expect some new and interesting things from the IMechE, or have we got obviously the regular program of events, but is there anything exciting coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a mixture. There's some of our old favourites, of course. They're going to be taking place every year. We do some things that are stable in the calendar that we know have to take place, and they deliver value. So they will still be happening. But there's some exciting things happening next year that are worth mentioning. So we've got a real international scope next year, which I think is really nice. We sort of, post-COVID, there was a big international push, but more virtually, with lots of webinars and interacting with people, and having this hybrid sort of working setup has enabled us to do that really effectively. So we've made inroads into that. We're going to be having more events next year with an international scope. A large number of these are call for papers, quite traditional, where there's some level of publishing sat behind them, so they're quite academic.
Yeah.
But that means that we can have a really wide international scope there. So a lot of those currently, they are open for submissions. Vibrations in rotating machinery, that's going to be taking place for the 13th time. Wow. So that happens every 3 years. And that, for the first time in many, many years, is going to be returning to One Birdcage Walk. So we're really excited to bring that back to the headquarters. And then we've got our International Pressure Vessels conference as well. Space, let's do those together to build something a little bit bigger. And so key themes around that, we're looking at automotive, building on what we did this year with the EV batteries and I2I conference. So that will have an additional 2 topic themes added to that, so that we can build a bigger audience. That had about 200 people attend it last year, so we're hoping for a couple more hundred if we're by adding on some existing, some further streams onto that. And then we've got one event that's looking at decarbonising the industrial clusters, but also how does that integrate into grid? How do we stabilise the grid, and some of those key themes. So we're really excited about that, because it's bringing in some of those nuanced engineering challenges that come with renewable power and new energy forms and things like that. So we're quite excited about doing some of those things. But I think, and as an overall view, a lot of our mainstays will be there. Key themes for next year, I think, are automotive and power for sure, and I would say a big focus on nuclear next year as well, especially on the safety element, with our fit for purpose safety cases event taking place at the beginning of the year, and then we've got our nuclear ventilation happening at the end of the year. Both are really get a lot of engagement from our audiences, and are seen as sort of the go-to events for those industries. So really excited about those things. As I said, we try and build communities into our existing portfolios and stuff. So we'll still have all of the competitions that will continue to grow, and so yeah, it'll be an exciting year next year. And as I mentioned before, we're really trying to incorporate some of those training elements into where we can as well, so that we can have those extra CPD opportunities for those who are attending our events that maybe want specific training on specific areas of the general topics that we're covering.
Yeah, that sounds good. And the opportunity as well, like you say, to consolidate some of these subjects that cut across so many other divisions and groups means that we as engineers actually get to meet people that we wouldn't have met ordinarily in our own little kind of niche area. So I think that sounds really exciting, to be able to broaden the opportunity to meet engineers from different sectors and to share experiences. That sounds really exciting.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think people see a lot of value in that. We often hear from people that are working in specific industries, and they'll have a particular challenge, and actually a different industry has already solved that 10 years ago and is already operating in a different way, but they just don't know about it yet. So it's really important that we have those cross-industry learnings. And some people are more inclined to stay within their particular industries, but actually I think there's loads to be learned from more of those, from those sort of cross-industry events that we put on. We always see lots of value in that.
Yeah. Well, hopefully any of our members who are listening to this show will start to maybe get some thoughts coming forward in their mind as to who they would like to share a platform with in terms of topics, and maybe, come together and create something really interesting. And I suppose that really leads me into my final question, really. If people are looking to attend an event, or to maybe put an idea forward and things like that, where do they go to find information, and how do they contact you in terms of discussing the opportunities for events and things?
Yeah, our website is usually the best place to go. So we're doing more work this year to make sure that we've got our websites up earlier, so that people can put dates in their diary. So there should be on the IMechE website now pretty much every single 2025 event that's going to be taking place, other than webinars, because they're usually more ad hoc. So they'll come out as and when we receive requests for those.
Right.
So hopefully, if you go onto our website, there will be all the information that you need there in terms of attending. Now, if people want to get involved specifically into an event, so, if you want to join an organising committee, or if you want to speak, or if your company might want to sponsor or showcase a solution that you've got for one of the engineering challenges that is being addressed at the conference, you are more than welcome to get involved. We are always welcoming new volunteers, new members. And so the best way to do that is probably to email us. There's a more general email, event inquiries, but if people want to email me, I'm more than happy to take on those things. If you go through event inquiries, it tends to end up in my inbox anyway, so you're more than welcome to pop them in there. But we're really, really keen to make sure that we're taking on board all new ideas and getting people involved where they can. And even if you've got more of a general question about how to get involved in the committees, we can point you in the right direction, or I'm more than happy to chat with some people, because I've worked at the IMechE for over 6 years now. So there's not much I don't know. Sort of, I know which doors that should be knocked on if you want particular things. I'm more than happy to chat with people about kind of how to get involved and the different ways to get involved as well, because there's always opportunities and we always want new and fresh ideas. So
Well, we'll put any links that you have, particularly to the events pages and obviously contact email address. We'll put those in the show notes for this episode as well. So if anybody's listening and they're interested or keen to either get involved in an event or to find out more about what's going on at the institution, check out the show notes to follow up on those. Fran, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Whenever I've been attending events, whether it's to chair an event or whether it's organising one, so you and your team always provide such support and such enthusiasm. And it's just really nice to end the year with a look back on what the institution has achieved from that point of view and what's coming for next year. So thank you very much.
That's no problem, anytime.
That's all from 2024. In fact, that's all from the Impulse to Innovation podcast, as we will not be returning in the new year. It's been a pleasure over the last 5 years to share the exciting developments and innovations across the world of engineering with you. We have reached over 109 countries, produced 51 episodes, and gained over 1,000 followers. I hope you've enjoyed this journey with us, and perhaps the show will return again in another format in the future. So on behalf of myself, Saeed Anzar, our wonderful AV engineer, and the whole podcast team at IMechE HQ, I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, wherever you are in the world. You've been listening to Impulse to Innovation, the Institution of Mechanical Engineers podcast. Thanks for listening. We'd love to hear from you. So if you'd like to share any news or any feedback with us, then please email us podcast@imeche.org. All the information on this episode can be found in the episode notes.